I hereby declare that I have been clearly informed about the nature and method of the study, as described above. I voluntarily agree to participate in this study. I retain the right to withdraw this consent without having to give a reason. I realize that I can stop the study at any time. My personal data will not be viewed by third parties without my permission. Sign here. The same blah blah as always. As a psychology student, I participated in dozens of these studies already. I even conducted two myself. One more boring than the other. Decades ago, some insane findings were found through psychological studies. Just think of the Stanford Prison Experiment or Milgram's study on conformity. Nowadays, nothing remotely interesting is possible because of all the ethical regulations you have to follow. A woman, maybe 30, with short black hair and a lab coat welcomed me at the entrance of the social studies lab and walked me to the waiting room. Hi. I'm Judy and thank you so much for participating in this study. Are you a student? She asked with a friendly smile on her face. I am, but I'm already in my third year, so I'm not participating for credit, I responded. I'm about to finish my degree, the only thing left is my thesis and I will finally be free. However, this means that I have hardly any time to work, so I could certainly use some extra cash. Watch a documentary at the lab // 50 euros or 5 credit points. That's what the flyer had said. Oh, that's great, then you probably already know how these things go. The process today will be as follows. You will watch a documentary for 5 hours together with a different participant. After that, you will each be guided to your own cubicle where you will do a few computer tasks and fill in a short survey. Your participant number today is 10. Please remember this number to ensure anonymity. Use these numbers with the other participant as well. Please don't exchange real names. Do you have any questions so far? I had no idea I would be watching the documentary with a different person, but figured that it was probably a part of the study. To see how people interact in a setting like this, or who knows what. They always have some hidden intention with these studies. No, sounds easy enough, I said. After I signed the informed consent form, we walked to one of the rooms of the lab. Lab makes it sound somehow cool and fancy, but it's just a few boring rooms in the ugliest brick building on campus. The other participant was already sitting on the sofa inside one of the lab rooms, which reminded me of an old classroom without windows. Judy pointed me towards the sofa, I said hello and sat down next to him. For some reason he seemed really familiar, but I don't remember meeting him before. Maybe he just reminded me of someone else, I figured. He looked like an average college student, young, brown hair, guns and roses shirt. The only thing that stood out to me was his extremely pale skin, which reminded me a little of myself. I never get a tan due to some blood issues I was born with. The movie will start automatically in a moment. Please pay attention as you will have to answer questions on it in the next part. Judy turned the light down and left the room, closing the door behind her. What do you think this is about? The guy whispered. Probably nothing, maybe she's observing us from next door, I joked. Oh hey, that's my number, he said and pointed to my hand. The number 9 was written on my hand with a Sharpie. This is weird. I don't remember writing anything on my hand. If anything it should be a 10, I said, slightly confused. It was pretty early and I was tired, but I would have remembered writing a number on my hand. Maybe Judy secretly did that to screw with your head, he laughed. The documentary started playing and we stopped talking. I don't know if you've ever participated in anything like this, but it always feels extremely awkward, adding a stranger makes it even worse. Maybe that's what they wanted. I watched the TV, but this documentary wasn't making any sense. It was just a number of frames of unrecognizable forms and colors, as if someone had run Teletubbies through a blender and it was combined with the weirdest music I've ever heard. Was this thing broken? I wanted to say something, but the number 9 guy was looking at it really focused. Whoa, what the fuck? 9 Foot suddenly broke the silence. Did you see that? I could tell he was breathing more heavily. What do you mean? I was still whispering. That looked really fucked up. Didn't you see that frame? Was that real? Okay, never mind, sorry, I think it just surprised me. I tried to focus some more, make sense of this video that definitely was no documentary. That's when I noticed it. For a tiny second there was a word shown. Shit, I blinked too soon. A subliminal message or a prime? I kept my eyes open and stared at the screen. Another word, cerebrum, followed by more happy colors and then Moors. Cerebrum had something to do with the brain, but what's Moors? There again. Fuck, did you not see that? Those words, I asked. Words? No, the pictures, did dash dot. That's when the TV suddenly shut off and the door opened. Judy was standing in the doorframe, smiling. This was the first part. Would you follow me to the cubicles now? With a weird feeling, I got up and followed her. The 3 of us were standing in front of the doors of the cubicle rooms. You will be in room 1, she looked at me, and you in number 2. The program is already running, instructions are included in there. I went inside the tiny, windowless room filled with fluorescent light and sat down behind the computer. The door behind me shut. Okay, this experiment feels a little weird, I thought, but I only had to finish these few tasks, and then I could leave. I imagined I'd have to answer questions on that unsettling film, but instead I was instructed to do some implicit association test. You will now be presented with sets of either words or pictures. If you associate the concept with something positive, press the left arrow key. If you associate the concept with something negative, press the right arrow key. It started off pretty normally, photos of flowers, storms, clothes. But then it got weird. A smiling face. Left. A bloody knife. Right. A shattered building. Right. Free will. Right. Fuck. Left. God left. Sacrifice left. Murder left. Shit, this was going fast. Someone wearing a Venetian mask with bloodstains. Right? The same person stabbing someone. Right. Again, the same person, looking straight into the camera. Right, right, right. What was this? The masked person holding the knife to his own throat. FUCK, I pressed left. I was starting to sweat, this didn't feel normal. It changed back to the text. Did you enjoy that? Smiley face. I didn't press anything. This wasn't normal. Don't look away, smiley face. I wasn't pressing anything anymore. More unsettling photos started to appear. A little girl biting into something that looked like an organ. A heart. Dozens of organs piled up. The girl, now wearing the mask and laughing. From that point on it only got worse. I saw things that I will never forget. Pictures so disturbing I can't even describe them. Words I didn't recognize, but something inside me knew they were wrong. I felt like I was about to throw up. I got up, my legs shaking. I had enough. This study was sick. I stumbled back to the door and tried to open it, but it was locked. Suddenly the computer made a loud, shrill noise. The screen changed to another photo. It was me. Wearing that mask and smiling. Then, a photo of the other participant. Number 9. Looking into the camera with blood all over his face. Another photo of me, holding a knife to my throat. What was going on here? I slowly walked towards the door. I was feeling dizzy. Thank you for finishing part 1. We will see you again when you wake up for part 2. Smiley face. I had a hunch this wasn't true when I stood behind the locked door of the cubicle. I knew it wasn't true when I woke up in a strange hospital bed. You're awake. OMG, I've been waiting to talk to you for so long, you're like a celebrity. I slowly came to my senses. In front of me, I saw a girl sitting on my bed, with a big smile on her face, but this smile didn't feel warm. It was the same weird smile Judy had. Like the Cheshire Cat. She was wearing a clean purple shirt and purple pants which looked somehow familiar. Then I remembered, that's what I was wearing in the photo where I held a knife to my throat. I looked down and noticed that I was wearing the same clothes but mine were white. White as everything else in this room. Clean. Sterile. Except for the blood crust on my inner elbow. There was a syringe stuck to my arm, bandage wrapped around it. I started panicking. I pushed the covers away and tried to get up but I felt too weak. Where am I? I mumbled. In the psych lab, silly, welcome back. Her blonde hair looked thin, her face pale, but her smile only got bigger. She must have been in her mid-20s, but the way she talked made her sound like a teenager. 10. That is so impressive. There is only one other person that got that close and dash. 10, I interrupted her, that's the participant number they gave to me. Did they talk to you about this? Did you do the same experiment? My heartbeat was racing. It's on your arm. Looks permanent. I guess this is your final one. Congrats. She was right. On the spot that had said 9 yesterday there was now a 10. But this one looked like a tattoo. Permanent. Had that happened yesterday? I felt extremely confused. My head was heavy. I felt like throwing up. I was at the study, I did the TAS scan. That's the last thing I remembered. They must have drugged me and brought me here. There are some studies that they conduct in the hospital, where they test new medications, or do sleep experiments, but this isn't possible. I did not give consent to be drugged and brought to a creepy hospital. There is no way the university would allow this. This wouldn't get past any ethical committee. These people had something awful in mind. I had to get out of here. A thought hit me. 9. Maybe they brought him here as well. What does the number mean? I asked carefully. I didn't feel like I could trust her. She seemed too okay with this situation, but I had to find out as much as I could. Geez, did you forget everything? That's your trials. I have 2, look. She held her arm in my face, which had the number 2 tattooed on. Most people are 2s or even 1s. Some 3s. I'm actually happy I'm a 2, means I'll get my treatment soon. After that she jumped up and walked back to her own bed. 10 trials. Had I been here before? You said there is one other person that got close? Yes. To 9. Can you please stop asking stuff now? The creepy smile finally started to disappear from her face. Instead she looked dead serious. They are in a different wing. They can't have high numbers talk to each other. And now SHT. After that she turned her face away from me and lay down in her own bed. So the number on my arm had something to do with trials. Was this the 10th time I had been her? I collected all my strength and got up. Number 2 seemed to have fallen asleep. I carried my body over to the window and looked outside. Everything looked awfully normal. The sun was shining bright. There was a big green lawn with a small pond in the middle. On the other side, there were big houses that looked like family homes. The whole street looked like a regular part of town, though I didn't recognize this district. Maybe they had brought me to a different city. I started shaking more. God, why was I feeling so weak? I looked over to the houses and the eyes of a person met mine. It was an older woman standing in one of the windows. I waved, cried, hit the window, but she showed no reaction. Finally, she smiled, that Cheshire cat smile, and waved back in the calmest way possible. I broke down in tears. I felt like I was sent to a different universe where everyone is bizarrely happy. I had to get out of here. I couldn't wait for part 2 of this experiment, or for some treatment. Especially not after those photos. So I made my way to the door. Please, please, please don't be locked, I muttered to myself. It opened. The feeling of relief rushed through my entire body. That changed quickly when I heard 2 shouting, "He'll come back," followed by a hysterical laugh. Fuck, an alarm got off. Red light filled up the surroundings, but I couldn't stop now. I was standing in a hallway with more closed doors. Probably more hospital rooms. From the end of the hallway I heard some commotion. Someone was on their way. Afraid to run into them, I opened the next best door. I found myself in another room that looked just like mine. I closed the door behind and held my breath. She ran out, she has to come back, I heard Tu's muffled voice behind the door. What do you mean she walked out? Increase her dosage and then. The rest I couldn't understand, but I knew who it came from. Judy. Then silence. They had moved on. I walked over to the hospital bed in the middle of the room. There was only one person in here. If you could still call it a person. This man looked completely drained out. As if there were only skin and bones left of him. He was wearing the same purple pants, but his exposed chest was full of cuts. Some stitched up, some with bloody crusts. On his arm there was the same 2 tattooed, and next to it this sign, Omega, but the most frightening part was his face. He was wearing the Venetian mask. Tears of desperation filled my eyes. I was certain he was dead until his chest suddenly moved up, his ribs sticking out even more. He was breathing. I jumped back when all of a sudden his eyes opened and his mouth formed to a smile. The same sick smile. Follow us. With that his eyes closed again. I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had something to do with this. I'm sure it was him I had seen on the photos. And I had pressed left. I had to get out. Get help. I stumbled back to the door. There was no noise coming from outside, so I carefully opened the door and walked outside. Oh, there you are. Hope you are ready for part 2 now. Judy. She was standing right in front of me, looking joyful as always. There was no way for me to escape, I realized when 2 male nurses moved towards me. I thought about fighting them, finding a way to trick them, but I realized there was no hope. I was too weak and there were 3 of them. So I followed them. I followed them down the hallway silently, crossing more rooms which I could only imagine were containing more participants. I numbly followed. I followed them through this gigantic, sterile hospital until we walked into a room that felt completely out of place. It was a beautiful, old-fashioned movie theater, with red satin chairs and a screen as big as a wall at the end. The whole theater was empty, except for one person sitting in the first row. The men led me towards him. From the back, I couldn't recognize anything, but then I saw his face. Bloody, beaten up, in his arm the same syringe. Number 9. Our eyes met, but he looked empty, absent, as if something had drained the life out of him. I tried to speak but didn't know where to start. Then I saw Judy standing right in front of us, behind her the big screen. "What did you do to him?" I shouted. Now. Let's all stay calm here, all right. He did this to himself. We never hurt our participants. Especially not the most valuable ones. And now quiet. I'm about to start my speech. I could swear her smile disappeared for a second, but there it was again. "Welcome to the psych lab," she continued in a cheerful voice. Or should I say welcome back? She turned to me and winked. It was quite the trip, wasn't it? Oh well, you don't remember. Her laugh echoed through the whole room. Let me just say you have been the toughest nuts to crack so far. But we would not expect less from you. Our two alphas. Most of our participants are, let's say, more simple-minded. 1 or 2 trials and they give themselves over entirely. But this is about you, and I can't wait for us to start the next part, the next chapter. Are you ready for the show? Stop. Stop. I want out. Please. Let me go. I whined. Ugh, Judy sighed. For the first time she looked irritated, almost angry. Really? You made it so far, past so many rounds. And now, of course, you are always free to go, but think of all the progress you've made. Progress? What are you talking about? I stood up from my chair. I don't remember ever coming here. Well, you did. You came here 9 times, and 9 times you decided to stop and leave at some point. But you always came back, and you will again. We have your blood after all. You saw the photos. We control you. Oh, you. Of course you could just save yourself the trouble and... I want to go, I shouted and looked over to number 9. Come with me, we need to find you a doctor. I tried reaching for his arm. His eyes met mine once more, his gaze even more hopeless now. He looked at Judy and shook his head. I want to see the show, he whispered. Don't worry, love, we have enough doctors here. We'll take good care of him. And now off you go. Next time you can skip part 1, just come straight back here. We'll keep your bed warm. I couldn't believe they just let me leave. No fighting, no discussion, they just opened the door and I walked out. Of course I knew that it couldn't be this easy. There was a brief moment where I wondered if I imagined all of this, but as I stepped out of the door of the hospital and breathed in the fresh air, I knew this was real. I could feel it. I walked out carefully, too scared to make sudden movements, wondering if this was still part of the experiment. I felt like a rat in a cage thinking it has free while scientists are looking down on it, measuring every little decision. No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't comprehend it. Why would they let me go? Why had they let me leave 9 times before? Why did they not wipe out my memory? I had to get answers, figure out the purpose of this study. But first, I needed to get help. It was already getting dark when I left the building. I tried to find some sort of orientation, but I was so tired and weak. I had no idea when I ate or drank anything for the last time. My best choice was to walk to one of the homes, hope somebody would let me use their phone and not think that I was some lunatic. All houses were lit up, so I walked towards the closest one and looked through the window. A family was sitting around a table inside about to have dinner. I rang their bell impatiently. Once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. I could clearly see them inside, I could even hear the bell, but they showed no reaction. Feeling a little creeped out, I made my way to the next house where exactly the same scenario happened. At the third house as well. That's when I realized I had to get further away. I don't know if they put something in the water or what happened here, but everyone seemed to be a mindless zombie. They had photos of me, where I did things I could never imagine doing. They have more control than I want to admit. I had to get far away. So I ran. The anger seemed to give me the strength I didn't realize I had. I kept running until I saw another light in the distance. It was a cafe. When I got closer, I noticed there were a few people sitting inside, chatting and drinking while the server took orders. It seemed normal. Not normal like the maniacs in the homes, but genuinely normal. I stopped myself from just running inside. First I had to calm down and think. They seemed normal, but I didn't. I was dressed in white hospital clothes, had a syringe stuck to my arm, and was about to burst in and talk about some organ stealing, cultist hospital. I needed to come up with a somewhat believable story, otherwise, I would just end up being sent to the nearest hospital, and that was the last thing I wanted. I removed the syringe, took a deep breath, and walked in. "Ma'am, is everything all right?" the gentleman at the counter asked, with a worried tone in his voice. "Hello, I hate to be bothering you like this, but I was just walking home from my work at the hospital when I was robbed. They took my bag and even my shoes. Could you maybe call the police for me?" I knew this sounded weird, but it was all I could come up with. "Oh my God, that sounds awful. Of course, that is no trouble at all. Have a seat, you look exhausted. Can I get you a glass of water?" he said, and for the first time today I felt like I saw a person with a real smile. "That would be really nice. Thank you." So I waited for the police, starting to feel more relieved. Until I turned around and looked at the other guests. And their smiles. They were all staring at me. One of the guests stood up and walked over to me. 10, huh? Why are you here? Are you dumb? Go back. You deserve it. Go back, the other guests shouted in unison. The friendly man behind the counter was nowhere to be found. I slowly stood up, I had to get out of here. That's when I saw the police car parked out front. I ran outside, towards the officer. After talking to me for a little while, he offered to give me a ride to the police station where I could make an official statement. I decided that this was the best option for me for now. Once there, I could call someone I trusted. "You know what, you don't look like you've been robbed," he said as he started driving. "What do you mean?" I was worried he might think that I broke out of a mental institution. "Well, I don't see any cuts." That's when I noticed the number on his arm. 3. "Welcome back. Police again, I guess. I preferred the times you called your friends." The look of desperation and betrayal when you realized you couldn't trust anyone. Judy was already standing in front of the hospital door. Waiting for me. "No words," she continued. "Okay, well, you can stay outside or come back in and we'll have a little chat. There is no escape. No way out. Not until I know what is going on here." We were back in the theater. This time just the two of us. "Did I come back to this hospital every time?" I asked. "Yes, but we sent you home afterward, to start over." "With part 1 of the experiment?" "Yes. We wanted to change variables, see what happens. The first time you were alone. You watched the documentary and felt so sick that we had to send you home immediately. Of course you forgot everything about it and signed up again. After you see it once there is no going back." She wasn't smiling anymore. What exactly is the documentary about? Anything you want it to be. Have you ever heard of subliminal messages? Yes. Messages that you don't consciously notice. They are supposed to have an effect on you, but it's all bullshit. Like the drink Coca-Cola, eat popcorn experiment. She laughed. Almost. Yes, those studies were bullshit. You don't buy more popcorn just because of a secret message embedded in the film. Subliminal primes lead humans to certain actions, however, when the message is goal-directed. Imagine you are extremely thirsty and see the Coca-Cola message. You won't consciously notice it, but if you get a choice between drinks you will automatically pick the Coke. Is this supposed to be a fucking school lesson now? She laughed out again. See, this is why you are my favorite. So cynical. You don't get the point though. The messages work when they are in line with your urges. Your needs. We planted ideas in their head with the documentary. Ideas that were matched with their deepest wishes. Then we showed them how to fulfill them. I was getting angrier by the second. So you are trying to tell me that the people here want to kill themselves and give you their organs? They don't want to give away their organs. Don't be silly. They want to give away their mind. Those people, they don't want to make choices anymore. They are used to float through life. Always on autopilot. All they use is System 1. The fast system in your brain. They don't need arguments or logic. Just a push in the right direction. Our messages work like wonders on them, they are ready to give themselves over. So what if some give us complete control over their bodies? It's still their choice. You fucking bitch. It's not a choice. Where is the difference in falling for some advertisement on TV? The choices are there, all we do is give them some guidance. How can you compare murdering people with falling for some shitty ads? We're not murdering anyone. As I told you before. Everyone is free to leave whenever they want, but they are happy here. And the mask? The knife? That was your idea and I loved it. When you came here on trial 5. Well, not explicitly, but that was what we found when we looked for your deepest wishes. You're a psychologist, try to analyze it. Fuck you. Now, not this hostility again. See, we perfectly match everything to our individual participants. Some work better with visuals, some work better with symbols. Everyone is different. As I said, some give themselves over entirely. They just want to stop thinking, these are our omegas. Others want some kind of purpose, so we give them work to do. As our lovely police officers or the friendly staff at the university, we call them our betas. And then there is the most elite group. The alphas. They like to take control. And with that she pointed towards the door. 9 walked in. I don't know how they did it, but he looked completely okay again, healthy, happy even. I looked over while I heard Judy continuing with her little speech. The messages are only the first step, we can show you everything else if you decide to stay. There is only a very small group that won't give their mind over. Do you know how long it took me to get the 2 of you? I need you. Together we can change everything. I know you don't completely understand yet, but we are making this world better. This is sick. Why would all these people just comply? Finally 9 spoke. There is no option out. All you can do at this point is to enjoy the show. At least we get the better view.